So warm greeting. This is the last session of Unit 3, Product Architecture. So what is secondary system and creating detailed interface specifications. So this is a desktop printer schematic diagram. Already we discussed in the previous sessions. With this diagram we can explain what is the functional and or physical elements. So the dotted line shows flow of signal, and this line, thin line, will shows flow of material, and thick line shows the flow of forces or energy. So defining secondary system. So the schematic shows only the key elements of the product. There are many other functional and physical elements not shown. So in a previous flow diagram, so many key elements are mentioned, but in addition to that we'll have many functional and physical elements not shown in the previous schematic diagram, some of which will only be conceived and detailed as the system level evolves. So examples includes safety systems, power systems, status monitors, and structural supports. So these are the system not mentioned in the schematic diagram of the desktop printer. So some of these system, such as safety system, will span several chunks. Fortunately, secondary system usually involve flexible connections such as wiring and tubing, and can be considered after the major architectural decisions have been made. So these secondary systems not mentioned in the architecture. So establishing the architecture of the chunks. Some of the chunks of a complex product may be very complex system in their own rights. So for example, many of the chunks in the desktop printer involves dozens of parts. So that we already discussed in the previous session. So the chunks have many components, many elements, functional elements. So it mentioned here, the chunks in the desktop printer involves dozens of parts. So each of these chunks may have its own architecture and a scheme by which is divided into smaller chunks. So these parts have own architecture. So and this is divided into smaller chunks. So this problem is essential identical to the architectural challenges posed at the level of the entire product. So for example, the printer cartridge consists of subfunctions: store ink and delivery ink for each of 4 colors of ink. Several architectural approaches are possible for these chunks, including, for example, the use of independently replaceable reservoir for each ink color. So that is a secondary system of uh, cartridge, desktop cartridge. Then creating detailed interface specification. So as the system level design progresses, the fundamental interaction indicated by lines on the schematic are specified as much more detailed collections of signals, material flows, and exchange of energy. So in schematic diagram it shows thin line, a thick line on dotted lines for signal, material flow, and exchange of energy in a clear manner. As this refinement occurs, the specification of the interfaces between chunks should also be clarified. For example, diagram shows an overview of a possible specification of an interface between a black print cartridge and a logic board for a printer. Here you can see black print cartridge to logic board. So we'll have several lines are there. So this 1 2 3 up to 11 lines are there. So the descriptions are mentioned here and the properties of the lines mentioned here. So such interfaces represents the contracts between chunks and often detailed in formal specification documents. So this is about creating detailed interface between the uh, two chunks, how it related to two chunks. So that we'll discuss in this session. This is about the secondary system in desktop printer cartridge. So that's all about the product architecture. Thank you.